This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so our topic today, somewhat predictably, is Rosh Hashana, and sorry, let me try to share the screen and be able to move it for all of you. No, sorry. There we go. Okay, so the topic is Rosh Hashanah, much more than Happy New Year. Okay, hello, good to see you, Leah. Okay, so the Jewish Rosh Hashanah is quite different than the non-Jewish Rosh Hashanah that we know. And for us, it is a very, very serious, yet at the same time, it is meant to be a very joyous time. And we'll have to examine what is the essence of the day and how does it then relate to us, and what import does it then carry for us. So let us begin with Vayikra Rabbah. Vayikra Rabbah is the Medrash, and it speaks about this day. Number one, Tani B'Shem Rav Elazar is Tani Rav Elazar, B'Chaf Hei Be'el Nivra Olam. The world was created on not the first day of Tishrei, not the first day of Tishrei, but rather on Chaf Hey Elul, on the 25th day of Elul. The view of Rav agrees with the above teaching of Rabbi Elazar. For we have learned, as we say in the bracha of the shofar, Zeh hayom tchilat ma'asecha. This is the day of the start of your actions. Zikaron liyom rishon. A remembrance, a memorial of the first day. Kichok Yisroel hu mishpat Elokei Yaakov. Decree for Israel, a law of Jacob. Note, I'm quoting from the davening now that we say on Rosh Hashanah. And on the countries, Bo Yemar will say, Ezel lecherev, who for sword, Ezel leshalom, who for peace, Ezel lerav, who for hunger, Ezel lesova, who for plenty, Ubriot Bo yipakedu, las kiram lechaim lemavet. And each creature is scrutinized individually on a day, las kiram, for them to be recorded for either life or death. Okay, so 1 second. If it's the sixth day of creation, how can we say that this is Yom Tchilat Maasecha? This is the day of the start of your actions. It's not the start, it's day 6, not day 1. So how can day 6 be day 1? Because of the creation of mankind. Why does that make it day 1? Well, right, the car that I'm driving, so there are many different parts to it, many different components to it. But the purpose of all of those components that Hyundai gathered was in order to build my car. Once the car was complete and it could accomplish its purpose as a car, that was the first day of the car. So yes, other things were created on days 1 through 5, but that was not the purpose of creation. The purpose of creation was and is humankind, free-willed beings who make decisions and hopefully choose well, and thereby elevate ourselves and the world around us to a higher level, to a more godly state, enabling us and eventually the world to connect with God on a very, very close, intimate level. That, as we understand, is the purpose of creation, that God can share his goodness with these creatures that he created, with his creations. And the only way that his goodness can be shared is if we earn it, we deserve it, we transform ourselves. Only human beings have this transformative ability factor. Therefore, the very first day of creation, meaning the purpose of creation, the day one of the purpose of creation was day 6 of the creation of humankind. Nimseit Ata Omer. The result is Biyom Rosh Hashana. It comes out now, and now we're going to break down the day, that very first day. And the Medrash says, on the first hour, Alav Machshava, it, so to speak, entered God's mind. Vishniya Nitya 8, he took counsel with the angels. From that we learn out the idea of humility, of seeking advice from others. You might know more, but nevertheless, everyone has their own unique perspective. So even though you might know more, you can and will gain from hearing from others. Not that God was going to gain from the angels, but that was to teach us that lesson. In the third, he assembled the dust. In the fourth, he kneaded it. In the fifth, he shaped him. In the sixth, he made him into a lifeless body. In the seventh, he breathed a soul into him. In the eighth, he brought him into the Garden of Eden. In the ninth, Adam was commanded against eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. In the 10th, he ate, transgressed. In the 11th, he was judged. And in the 12th, he was pardoned. Okay, so right away we see this idea that, well, let's go further. Number 2, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem said, Zeh siman lebanecha, this will be the sign, the model, the template for your descendants. Keshem shamarta lefanai b'din hayom hazeh, the same way that you stood before me in judgment on this day, and you left with pardon, with clemency. So to your descendants will stand before me on this day, V'yotzin b'dimus, and they will go out with clemency. Matai, when is that? Sunday night, Monday. Monday night, Tuesday. That is when that is. That is on the Rosh Hashana. That is on Rosh Hashana. But it seems to be a bit strange. Thank you so much. It seems to be a bit strange. What's strange about this? So Adam was judged. In the 10th, he transgressed. In the 11th, he was judged. In the 12th, he was pardoned. Does that sit well with everybody over here? He wasn't pardoned. He was booted out of Gan Eden, kicked out of the Garden of Eden. All of a sudden, b'seyas apecha tochal lechem, by the sweat of his brow he will eat bread. And on Chava it was said that with difficulty they will have pregnancy, childbirth, raising children, right? It's hardly pardon. It's hardly clemency. So the one approach is they stayed alive. They stayed alive. That was the pardon. That was the clemency. But the way that Rabbi Schwab explains, I believe Rabbi Schwab is very beautifully. Gan Eden, Garden of Eden, paradise, Shangri-La, is the optimal environment. When they were in Gan Eden, that was the optimal environment for them to be in. That's what makes it Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, paradise, perfect. But if I change, then what's perfect for me also changes. Now, when they ate from that which was too easily and readily accessible, therefore they needed to be put into an environment where everything would not be as easily and readily accessible. Therefore, they needed to be out of the Garden of Eden. They needed to be in a place where By the sweat of your brow you will eat the bread. You'll have to toil for it. That became their ideal environment. Therefore, that became their Gan Eden. That became their Garden of Eden. So the judgment was not punitive. The judgment, the pardon was, well, you've changed. Now the ideal environment also changes. As people get older, they often want to have a one-story house to live in, right? Whereas before, having 2 or 3 stories was their best environment. As they've changed, their best environment changes. And the best thing for them is to have an environment that best suits them. If the environment is meant to be an area for self-growth and self-actualization, then the Gan Eden is the environment that most presents, offers the opportunities for self-growth and self-actualization based on where the person is at. So therefore, it was clemency, it was pardon, because it placed them into their proper environment. And as we'll see, that is how we view the din on Rosh Hashana, of placing us in this forthcoming year into that situation that will be best presented, best honed for our own growth. Yes, Leah. Okay. Now, those online, in order to keep scrolling for you, I can't see you. Okay, so if you want to say something, you have to speak up. Raising your finger or hand will not help. Okay, let us continue here. The Marsha explains, source number 3, Yatzalon me'elu dvarim ki lekach nikva Rosh Hashana be'echad b'Tishrei. That is why Rosh Hashana was established on the first day of Tishrei. In other words, the Mishnah in Rosh Hashana said there are 4 times during the year that we're judged. And Passover time, Pesach time, we're judged about the grains for that year. And that makes sense. That's the start of the grain season, so to speak. And Shavuot, Matan Torah time, that's when we're judged on the fruits of the trees. That makes sense. That's the time of the start of the fruits of the trees season. On Sukkot, we're judged on the rainfall. That makes sense. That's the start of the rainfall season. So God is going to be judging us on these different items at their appropriate time. But what is the judging of mankind? What does that have to do with Rosh Hashana? So as we saw from this first sources 1 and 2, and the Maharsha brings it home, Rosh Hashana was established on the 1st of Tishrei since the world, specifically humankind, was created on this day. And on this day, Adam was judged for his transgression. And he did teshuvah, and God, in his mercy, who created the world, pardoned him. Therefore, our forefathers, Avram, Avram and Yaakov, were born on Rosh Hashanah through the attributes of kindness and mercy, which is a sign to their descendants that they would be judged together with them through mercy. So Rosh Hashanah is the time of the judging. It's the time, as we'll soon see a little bit further, of a new cycle, right? Every business has its annual cycle. What is the day 1? And when is it that the year comes to an end, right? We have our taxes begin January 1 and end December 31st. The shul's structure is September 1 through August 30, right? And God's structure for humankind, well, we look at the birth date of humankind, which was Rosh Hashanah, and that will be the date of taking that accounting, making sure the books are all up to date, and planning as we go forward. But as he often does, Rabbi Akiva Tates, in his wonderful book, Living Inspired, strongly recommend. Wonderful, wonderful sefer in English, so it's available for all. He writes as follows: as the energy of time cycles through its phases, it reaches peaks which are specific to its seasons. The energy which lends itself to inspiring and revitalizing the point of beginning peaks at Rosh Hashana, the new year. One who wishes to elevate and amplify his power of new creation, one's ability to be always new and self-generating, should utilize the spiritual power of Rosh Hashanah to the fullest. Rosh Hashanah is the beginning of the year. The spiritual forces operating at moments of beginning are unique. The sages say, Hakol holech achar harosh. Everything follows the head. Everything follows the beginning. The entire course of any process is determined by its beginning. This is because a beginning is a conception, and conception represents the laying down of the genes, which are the blueprint for everything which is built later. The spiritual rule is that the closer to the moment of conception, the more potent and critical the force is. As we know, he gives a beautiful example. A small injury to the human body may not be of major significance in an adult. A fetus during development is much more sensitive to such an event. And a minute change to the genes may have the most far reaching results imaginable. And there's much research being done now in when they see that that a fetus will develop a certain way, if they can manipulate the genes somewhat so that the child will not be born with whatever defect or whatever challenge or disease, whatever it might be. At the moment of conception, all details are being coded most potently, and it is therefore the most critical moment. And it's fascinating that in our world we understand this more and more with our computer, the code. If there's something wrong with the code, then the program is not going to run. It is therefore the most critical moment. No subsequent moment can ever have the intensity and significance of that first moment. The flash of conception contains everything. All later development is simply a revelation of what was created during that first flash. Right? The flash of conception is 23 plus 23. That's what we have. And those are the genes, combination of the mother and father. Those are the genes of that child. Right then and there, it is set what the genes are. All later development is simply a revelation of what was created during that first flash. Yes?
You know that the outer shell of the egg is phosphorus. And when the sperm breaks it, there's actually a flash of light from that phosphorus.
Oh, really?
So you are a flash of light at conception.
Okay. Nice. And our goal, our job in life is to continue to be a flash of light as we work our way through. Nice. I like that. That sort of sets the tone of what we're supposed to do. And now roll up your sleeves and do it. Yeah, nice. Rosh Hashanah is the conception of the year. The next 10 days bring us through Yom Kippur are its gestation. That is why these days are so critical to the whole year. That is why a person is judged for the entire year as one appears on Rosh Hashanah. The personality as it exists then is the core, and it will take supreme effort later to change. Change on Rosh Hashanah is much easier. One can manipulate the genes of one's character then. People of spiritual knowledge take extreme care to live perfectly on Rosh Hashanah. The year is being conceived, right? That's we have all those simanim. right? We have the apple, we have the honey, we have the pomegranate, we have all these different things that is what should unfold. Rosh Hashanah is kind of like the file in its zipped form, and then it unzips, it unfolds over the course of the year. Many have a custom not to sleep, at least during the morning hours. They wish to lay down the genes of the year in consciousness, not oblivion. What is the source of this special energy? The first Rosh Hashanah ever, right? If this is the source of the energy for the whole year, so what is its source? What was its beginning? Its beginning had to have been that much more powerful to allow every following year beginning to draw from that. The first Rosh Hashanah ever, which of course must represent its true nature most powerfully, was the day of the creation of man. That day of creation was the world's first Rosh Hashanah, and its climactic event was the creation of the human. That is why the day always retains its power to recreate man. When we genuinely and intensely decide to elevate our personalities on Rosh Hashanah, become inspired to live the coming year as higher beings, we're using the day's deeply rooted energy as the day of human creation. As we mentioned before, the mitzvah of the day is, what is the mitzvah of Rosh Hashanah? Blowing the shofar. What does the shofar mimic? What is it repeat? Once again, the breath of life being blown in. So if that was the day of creation of mankind, then every year we have our opportunity to recreate. When we genuinely and intensely decide to elevate our personalities on Rosh Hashanah, become inspired to live the coming year as higher beings, we are using the day's deeply rooted energy as the day of human creation. The day has the power to energize real change and help a person become unrecognizably different. I've mentioned before in a number of different contexts, the same way that we eat the apple and the honey and all these things for a good, sweet year, because we understand this is what the year will unfold from. So certainly the Bali Musa say, be careful not to get angry on that day. You don't want that. Not to feel jealous on that day. But that our frame of mind should be such that that's what we want the year to unfold as we move forward. Okay, let's take a look now at this judgment as such. The Gemara on Rosh Hashanah says, I mentioned before, Ba'arba Prakamel Nidon, 4 times the world is judged. Pesach for the harvest, Shavuot for the fruit trees. On the Sukkot is for water. On the new year, all the inhabitants of the earth, of the world, pass before God like B'nai Maron. B'nai Maron means sheep that are in a pen, and they're being led out of the pen one at a time. As it's stated, the one who created sees together their hearts, the one who understands all of their actions. Only God understands all of our actions. Only God truly understands us in a very full way. Rambam, source number 6, Maimonides. Shikul zeh, this calculation, this weighing, is not based on the number. It's not a simply numbers game. How many good deeds, how many bad deeds. Out of lefi go dalam. Rather, it is according to their magnitude, their strength. Yeshachut. There can be a merit, she keneged kama avonot, which is equal to many missteps. V'yesh avon shu keneged kama zechuyot. There could be one misstep that is equal to many mitzvot. Ve'ein shoklin ela b'dato shel kel deot. So how can this calculation be made? God only knows, or only God knows. Because only God knows what we struggle with, what's easy for us, what's difficult for us, what's going on, what happened the moment before that opportunity came up, what sort of frame of mind did that put me into, what am I dealing with, what am I juggling, what am I struggling with. Only God knows that, and only God can weigh that, and only God can judge that. And therefore, as you know, one of my mantras is, we can't judge other people. We can judge actions and say, that's not how I would like to behave. But I can't judge that person. Who knows, if I was dealing with all that person's dealing with, maybe my reaction would have been that much worse than theirs. That I don't know. We must judge actions and say, is that what I want to do, not what I want to do? If this person is continuously behaving a certain way, is that who I want to have around a lot or not? Is that person going to be draining my energy and putting me into a sour mood? I'm not judging the person. Maybe with their cards, I'd be playing the hand that much worse. We don't judge the person. Only God can be done, as the Rambam says, b'da'ato, according to the thinking, shel kel deot, of the God of knowledge. V'hu ha'yodeya, and he knows, heich orchin, how we line up, how we measure, how we weigh, hazichuyot keneged avonot, the merits and the missteps. Taking this a step further, Rabbi Yisroel Salanter, or Yisroel Salanter of the 19th century, was the founder of the Musar movement, which sought to incorporate into the regular curriculum of the yeshivas time to focus on self-improvement, self-development. Whereas the earlier generations were able to draw that just from their learning, he saw the need to focus on that as a study in and of itself, to give it the full mind and effort that it does require. And he says, Kol davar yitchalek al pi ha'pu'ula v'al pi ha'poel. Every action can be assessed according to the pu'ula, the act, v'al pi ha'poel, and the actor. There's the act, and there's the person who is performing that act. From the perspective of the action, every good action is gauged by the results which it produces. A person praised for his actions accordingly. To the extent that there are beneficial results, an action will be considered to be qualitatively better. All good actions will stand in his merit. This principle is expressed by the sages when they said, a good act, yesh la zechut, yesh la keren, v'yesh la peros. It has the principle and it has the fruits. It has the principle and it has the dividends. All the good, that which will result from that, all of that gets attributed back to the person who put it in motion. Whereas Aveira yesh la keren ve'ein la peros. Whereas an Aveira has the principle but does not have the fruit. There's no additional repercussion for that which might have resulted from it. Okay, from the perspective the person performs the action, so that's the act. But we have to take into account the actor, the person performing. Every good deed is measured by the quality of the effort that goes into its performance. It's measured by the effort. In the physical, material, secular world, what speaks is the results. I wanted this on my desk by 9 o'clock. It was not there on my desk by 9 o'clock this morning. Yes, but I don't want to hear yes, but I don't care about your wife. I don't care about your kids, or I don't care about your husband. I don't care about your kids. I don't care about your parents. I don't care how you're feeling. 9 o'clock, it needs to be on my desk. It was not there. You have failed. That is the secular, material world that we live in. What matters is the results. In God's world, that is not the case. What matters is the effort that went into it. Sometimes we succeed, sometimes we fail. But if we did our effort, that's all God asks of us. That's all He expects of us. Realizing that everything, when it comes to the results, that's in His hands, not ours. As our sages teach, Lefum Tsara Agra, according to the difficulty, the effort, that is the reward. And the Gemara actually goes along and says that once performing an act once with difficulty is kameya shelo b'tzar. It's like doing it 100 times without tsar. When someone says to me, Rabbi, I was so tired, I couldn't come to davening. What an opportunity. If you were so tired, you would have gotten 100 million days for that one day. Not to say you're off the next 99 days, right? But doing it that one time with that effort is exponential, right? A person has a chance to invest $1, and you invest $1, and it could earn point 0. Whoa, it's gone up to 0.025 now. That's how much you're earning. Or you could earn 100 times for that $1. That's what tsar is. When we have the difficulty, that's the time to jump in. The chen kol davara, and so too we do something wrong. How difficult was it for you to avoid that? The more difficult to avoid, the less severe the accountability. Rav Meir said, greater is the punishment for failing to wear white tzitzit strings than failing to wear the blue ones. Right? Our tzitzit are all white, but when we used to have the techelet, the blue dye from a certain snail, fish, different opinions. So that was much more expensive, much harder to get. So if you don't have the blue, okay. You don't have the white, that's easy enough. Compared to a king of flesh and blood, 2 servants. He ordered one, bring me a seal made of plaster. The other, bring me a seal made of gold. Neither of them listened. Neither brought the seal to the king. Who was given the greater punishment? The one who did not even bring the seal made of plaster. That is how the world is judged by God. How much difficulty is it for you to do? How difficult was it for you to refrain? All that's going on in your life is all part of this calculation. This is what the Rambam means. No individual can estimate the consequences. No individual can estimate the consequences of his actions in order to judge the value of his mitzvot and transgressions according to what they will produce. Similarly, no one person can evaluate the great effort that is invested in fulfilling the Torah and mitzvot. If we can't even fully assess our own situations, then we certainly, as we say, kal v'chomer, cannot judge and assess anyone else's. So it's a matter of the act, it's a matter of the results, but most importantly, it's a matter of you and all that's going on in your life, and all of that is taken into account. The Siftei Chaim Friedlander explains a little bit further. While it is true that the past deeds of a person determine his judgment on Rosh Hashana, nevertheless, the past is not the main focus, rather the future. I've mentioned before in different classes, different contexts. That's why it's not Sof Shana, it's not the end of the year. If it's all about the past, then it should have been December 31. It should have been August 30. There should have been the very last day of Elul. It's not. It is the first day of Tishrei. The judgment on Rosh Hashanah is not like that of an earthly court, which looks at a person's past actions in order to hold one accountable, determine reward or punishment. Such will be the case on the Yom Hadin Hagadol V'Hanorah, the great and awesome future day of judgment, when we complete our lifetime, upon which we will be judged upon all our past actions to determine our ultimate reward and punishment. But the judgment of Rosh Hashanah is a different sort. The focus is mainly on the future. Judgment is merely a function of the special nature of the day, since it is the Rosh, literally the head of the year that incorporates the entire year to come, as Rabbi Tates in source number 4 explains so beautifully. As such, God naturally judges us by virtue of this head. He will give us that He give us all that we will receive for the needs of the new year. That's what I mentioned before when we're looking at Adam Arishon, Adam being judged favorably. He was put into an environment that became his Gan Eden, that became his optimal environment. That is what is meant by the expression, today is the day the world was conceived. As we say in our davening, Hayom Harat Olam. Right? Hayom Harat Olam. Right after the shofar blowing. The word conception, hara is pregnancy, is used to signify the entire year is created in potential on Rosh Hashana, and therefore today, right, in Hebrew, B'yom Zeh Mekupal, right? The Hebrew is beautiful. Mekupal, right? Leah and Or appreciate that more than most. It is folded in over here the entire year. Kol Atid Shana Ba'ah. And therefore, Hayom Yamid B'Mishpat. Therefore, today we stand in judgment. Let's give an example from the real world. Every factory, retailer has an annual budget. The purpose of fixing a budget is for the future. If I'm closing down the business, there's no point in a budget. What was finished. It's all about the future. That is, we deliberate about how to finance the growth of the business in the future. But in order to do so, we look back at the productivity of the previous year. There are, of course, many factors, but one can only allocate resources based upon possibilities that have been determined in the past. As such, one must know the income and expenditures of the past, and on that basis, prepare for the future. We see then that the purpose of a budget is for the future, while it is based on an accounting of the past. So too is the judgment of Rosh Hashana, more like a budgetary allocation than a trial. Based on the past, while determined is what are the tools, what is the Gan Eden that we will need for the next year of the most growth. It could be wonderful things, it could be some difficulties and hardships, is that which will allow us to self-actualize and elevate to the greatest degree in this forthcoming year. Yes, Chaya Rivka.
Before you said what matters is the effort. Effort seems like what we've already completed, we've done. And then it says the main focus is the future. So either the focus is
Okay.
on the future or is there
Okay.
the past?
Okay. There are two things we're discussing over here. How is an individual going to be judged on an
Send a message.
Israel or wine, the blessing we make is Barei Nefashot Rabot. We thank God for creating so many souls. V'chesronan, and that which they are lacking. We thank God for creating us and the world in a lacking manner, which enables us to play a role, to step up, to do, to accomplish. We of the human race are God's employees. Our job description is clear: contribute to the enterprise's bottom line to the point of profitability. The spiritual assets must exceed the debits. To ensure the firm's ongoing success, an accounting system is put into place, which examines each employee's performance vis-a-vis the company's bottom line. Rosh Hashana is the time of accounting, where each Jew is called before the heavenly accountants, who weigh every spiritual transaction, good deeds, infractions, to determine whether the employee's contract will be renewed for the coming year. Have we even recognized that God is in fact the CEO? On Rosh Hashanah, we affirm that God is the creator and director of the universe amidst coronating shofar blasts and reflective prayer. That's the two foundations. God is the creator and God is also the director. Shabbos is our belief in God as a creator. Every holiday is God's involvement, God as the director. In performing teshuva, returning, we figure out where we went wrong, and just as importantly, how we're going to fix it. We arrive on the day of judgment with mixed emotions. On the one hand, we're optimistic and happy about the prospect to be inscribed for another year in God's majestic world. On the other, we're imbued in interest, we're subdued and introspective, recognizing we still need to advocate for the renewal of the contract, another year of life, because at least we have identified our problems and are prepared to take measures to ensure they don't happen again. But who can truly say they've done all they can do as God's employees and therefore are assured of a positive outcome of Rosh Hashanah? Therefore, we are asked to consider our faith as hanging in the balance and give it until Yom Kippur to more fully examine our moral issues, better implement our fixes and resolutions. We try to account for our shortcomings and transgressions and resolve for them never to recur as we stand before the CEO, God Almighty Himself. Late in the day, we must conclude that for all our teshuva, we still might find ourselves a tad less than fully qualified for a renewal of our life contracts. It might seem that all is lost. We look up and notice that God is our own Father in heaven. So during the prayer services, we cry out, Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King. Hey, Dad, it's me. I'm your child. I know I have erred along the way, but please, I'm your child. Give me a break. What father can resist that kind of sincerity on the part of his beloved child? There's a beautiful story about the first Rebbe of Lubavitch who was imprisoned by the Russian authorities. Sound familiar? Some things never seem to change. He was imprisoned on some trumped up charges by the authorities. And the warden there was a religious Bible studying man. So he saw that there was this saintly, scholarly prisoner. So he said, Rabbi, can I ask you a question that's always troubled me? And the Rebbe said, sure. So he said, it says that God turned to Adam and said to him, Ayeka, where are you? Doesn't God know where he was? And the first Lubavitcher Rebbe responded and said to him, do you believe that the Torah is speaking not just a story of what happened, but is speaking to us on a daily basis? And he said, of course. So he said, the question that God asked him and God asks us is, where are you? What are you doing with the abilities that I gave you? Where have you gotten to in life? Where are you? Ayeka. And Rebbe said, he turned to the warden and said, and he turns to you and he says, you're a 46-year-old man. Where are you? What are you doing with the power that you have right now? And this person was a bit shocked how the Rebbe knew exactly how old he was, and he understood that he was telling him the message was, you have power, you have responsibility. God is watching how you're treating me and all the other prisoners here. But that's what happens on Rosh Hashana. Ayeka. The question we need to ask ourselves is, where are we? Where have we been? And where are we heading? Okay, my friends, call it over here. Sorry, there we go.
Rabbi.
Good. I didn't lose you guys. Good. Oh, hello. Elizabeth. Good. Nice to see you, Elizabeth. Lenore, good to see you. Sorry, I wasn't able to acknowledge anybody. In order to move the pages for you, I had to kind of lose this screen over here. But let me wish everybody online over there, and of course in person, everybody could say hello to one another. Everybody say hello, say hello, say
Hi.
hello.
Hi. Shana Tova
All
to
right.
everybody. Thank you very much, Rabbi.
Wishing everybody a Shana Tova. Oops, lost my camera. I'm not missing much. But let me wish everybody a Shana Tova, a good, healthy year, a year of growth, a year of simcha, a year of health. And we should all continue to be there with one another, for one another, and all help to continue to help one another on this journey that we call life. Okay, Shabbat
Amen.
Shalom, Shana Tova to everybody.
Shana Tova. Shana Tova, Rabbi.
Shana Tova.